Hello and welcome to Podtoid. We are your host. I am CJ.
I'm Chris.
I'm Charlotte.
I'm Occams.
And this is episode 395. We are without Dan today. He is a bit sick, so we hope he gets better. I just want to say to all of you, welcome back, and I hope you had a good GDC week, which I guess doesn't matter because none of us were at the show. But we did send a freelancer, Jill, and I hope this is how you pronounce her last name, Grote, to the convention, and she was able to cover it for us. So I just want to thank Jill for doing that for us and getting in there and getting some interviews. Really good coverage from her. Anyway, it is the last full week of March, and this is actually the last Podtoid of the month. We are taking next week off, so we're going to make this show extra good or bad. I'm not sure which direction we're going just yet. Probably a little of both. Before we get started, Charlotte, you live in Germany. Were you part of that big YouTube stabbing brawl that happened this week?
What?
You didn't hear about the big YouTube stabbing brawl? The two German rapper YouTube stars whose fans started attacking each other?
No.
Oh,
I don't want to incriminate myself. No, but I definitely need to look that up because that sounds fascinating.
Yeah.
Why though? Why?
Why not? I think we should do this with more YouTube fans. Let's get like Boogie and PewDiePie's fans to duke it out with one another. Just YouTube Fight Club. That's what I'm talking about.
I would give every cent I have to watch that. That'd be so great. Just the ham sweat smell in that room.
Do you know what the name of the rappers were?
You know what? I had it written down, but then I thought, that's not important. We're not going to probably get too far into this. I think one of them was like Al Hood Moo Mod. I don't know. Some weird. I don't know. They're YouTube names, and I don't care. I was just hoping that you would have been part of the brawl and like stabbed a bitch or something.
I mean, I can't say that I didn't. Well,
authorities are still looking.
My lawyers will answer whatever questions you have to ask.
And what with your surname being Cuts, I'm really surprised, to be honest.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. I do have a bit of a. I don't know where I'm going with this.
And like at the brawl, like, okay, a guy pulls out a knife. All right, that's fine. That's convenient. Like, I'm not afraid of that guy because that guy's just like, I got a knife. The dude I'm really scared of is the guy with the bike chain. Oh shit, dude's going double dragon style. I'm not gonna fuck with that guy.
That guy's been fighting since the 80s.
Yeah, that guy's ready for it.
Yeah. Although apparently it's not just, German YouTube fans pulling out knives you have to worry about. Apparently Dora the Explorer now has a knife and she's about to cut someone as well. And you guys see that trailer?
Yes.
No.
This morning.
No. I didn't grow up with Dora the Explorer, so it means nothing to me.
Pretty much, yeah.
But do tell me what all that is, because I know she's a Hispanic little girl who's not on the Magic School Bus, and she runs around exploring shit, right?
Yeah, she finds things. I guess I've never seen an episode because I'm just as old as you are, so didn't grow up with it. But it's mostly about teaching kids Spanish. And so they learn a word in English and a word in Spanish. I don't think they're going to do that in the movie. Although I'd really love to say, "Come on, we have to go to the library, La Biblioteca." Just really throw it in there.
And she in the movie she has a knife.
Yeah, there's one scene where she just has this like, I don't know, Crocodile Dundee knife that she's walking around with, and it's like, damn.
I didn't see the whole trailer, but isn't it? She goes to school and they've got like metal detectors at the school, but all she's got on her is like all these exploring tools. So she's got like a pickaxe and like a serrated blade.
Yeah, pretty much. Before we start the show, did any of you guys do the Florida Man challenge this week? Where you you type Florida Man into Google and then you put your birthday and you see the first story that comes up?
I did, and it was something really sad. I can't even remember what it was, but I remember being like, "Oh, I'm gonna do this, and then I'll put it out on Twitter, and everyone will have a good laugh." And then I typed it in and looked, and it was just something like about like a massacre or something. I was like,
jeez.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
CJ, I didn't, but I ate at a Mediterranean restaurant last night, and in the parking lot there was a trio of dirty diapers arranged next to my car. So I figured, I guess I kind of did in a way.
So I did it, and my birthday was this past Monday. And when I typed all of that information into Google, my headline was Thrown pancake batter leads to battery charges for Florida man. According to the story from the Associated Press, 45-year-old Dwayne Zimmerman, and let me just stop myself by saying apparently there are no good Zimmermans in Florida, was drunk on Friday night when he went to the porch of a woman who was making pancakes, as you do. According to the story, Zimmerman insulted the woman and threw a cooking pan before grabbing her pancake batter and throwing the bowl at her. The bowl missed, but she did get hit with batter in the hair and the clothes, and you never get something in a woman's hair.
Nope.
No further information on the case, but let me just say I love the good wordplay going on with the crime, that there's a man throwing pancake batter charged with battery. Yeah, there it is.
Took me a while. How do you do this? Because I might actually just quickly do this on air. Like,
You just
how do you
go to Google and you type in Florida man and then the month and day of birth.
Okay.
This is
And I'd like to think that the battery wordplay, that's like a Florida Pulitzer right there.
That's as close as you get to a poem out of Florida.
Yeah, pretty much.
I'm just getting like a list of like the Florida Man challenge thing now, so it might have got ruined.
Oh,
me.
that sucks.
So
We are down Dan today, so I guess we're a little light on content. So, I mean, have you guys have anything interesting happening to you this week?
My week's been pretty dull, other than fighting the man. And by fighting the man, I mean filling out an online petition and complaining on Twitter.
Yeah.
But it's better than nothing.
Is Theresa May the man?
Theresa Mann. I don't know.
Theresa May is, I swear, a Dalek. Like, there's something not just not quite human about her. Really.
So, speaking of dialects, I don't know which it is. Last night,
It's Dalek.
Dalek.
Yeah.
Last night, a friend of my ex, actually, we decided to stay friends after we broke up, decided to treat me to a mystery dinner. It's one of those performances that you go to. And the reason it connects to dialects is one of the characters was carrying a sonic screwdriver toy that he was using as a flashlight. And I could not pay attention to this. I've always wanted to go to one of these things, and so I jumped at the opportunity, and it was I kind of went in expecting it to, like, in my mind I built it as there would be not necessarily a stage, but there would be a few sets of tables that are like, oh, these are where the actors are, these are where the actors are going to be, so you have to pay attention to those tables. Not like that at all. So we get in there and we make fake names for our name tags. And so me and my friend, my ex, we go by American Gladiators. He's Spike and I'm Blaze. I think those were American Gladiators. We might have just been gay porn stars, but either way, we were Spike and Blaze, and everyone like had all these really inventive names like Anastasia Dakotia Cortez or something like that. And we were placed at a table with 3 other couples, and it was actually a really fun table. People we'd never met before. And so, I thought that that's what it was going to be with us watching other tables, but the first thing they had us do was stand up and go interrogate other people just randomly. Just walk up to people in this room and just start interrogating them. So I really had to like get into it and be like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to play a part, which for me, it meant that I got to lie to everyone. Like, no matter what question they asked me, I just told them whatever lie came into my head. I told them that, my name was Blaze because when I was born, the hospital caught fire. And I just spiraled from there into me being a fire starter. Anyways, so we're just all like, there's 100 of us in there. We're all just kind of meeting each other. And I could tell right away, there's a woman who's hanging back, and I'm thinking she's the first one who's going to die. And sure enough, like 3 minutes later, she's screaming and running around and dying, being stabbed to death. And so, okay, she's dead. And I'm apparently supposed to have, in about 5 minutes, talked to enough people to have an idea who the murderer is. So, they have the detectives come in. One of them is holding the sonic screwdriver that I just immediately never take my eyes off of. And it's real low grade acting. Like, there's a reason these guys are doing dinner theater and not legitimate theater. But then this woman starts coming in and introducing herself to all the tables. And within as soon as I saw her going to every single table, I'm like, okay, well, she's clearly the murderer. So I'm going to have to sit here for 90 more minutes when I know clearly she did it, because nobody else in this room is going and talking to other tables. So either she is insane or she's the murderer. I did find out she absolutely was the murderer. I was right the whole time. But it was, I don't know, it was way more audience participation than I thought it would be, because there were 3 or 4 instances that we had to get up and go talk to other people and ask them fucking questions that I didn't care to ask them. And just so much work. And I apologize for that noise if it's coming through in the background. I don't know. I think there's still construction going on downstairs. Anyways, the food was like, it was $150 a plate. And the food was like in a comedy when someone goes to a fancy restaurant and they order like an $80 duck meal and it's 3 peas and a duck leg. Like, that's what it was. It was just a little bit of couscous and a tiny piece of fish is what I got for $150. And all the drinks, none of the drinks were included. Like, those were $16 a pop. And then dessert was carrot cake. And if there's anything you should not give people, it's carrot cake. Why carrot cake? Of all the fucking desserts you can give people, carrot cake? I'd rather have that green tea ice cream you get at Japanese restaurants than fucking carrot cake.
Carrot cake is, if one, it's the worst cake. 2,
yes,
it's one of the worst foods ever. I mean,
absolutely.
I don't know who the fuck thought to put carrots in a cake. Carrots, for God's sake. It's one of, my dad loves carrot cake, and that's why I won't be at his funeral. And it's fucking one of the worst foods ever. I don't understand it. I don't know how anyone likes carrot cake, because when I bite into cake and there's a sliver of carrot, I'm like, oh, this is trash food.
Yeah. My mom one year got my brother a carrot cake for his birthday, and we were just all trying to figure out why, because she was the only one in our family who ate it.
So with this mystery theater, like, what part of it is eating? Is it like you eat your food and then you have to all stand up and go and talk to people and then come back for your dessert? Or... Yeah,
so we got in and there was the salad, and so we ate the salad, and then the murder. Then we had to get up and talk to people. Then the murder happened, and then the entree was served, and then they started bringing around evidence, which was just laminated, like little print-ups that they had. And my personal favorite part about it is, like, there was a past murder we were also trying to solve in addition to the woman who got stabbed at the dinner show, and he was a musician, and so they had this fake article from Rolling Stone, and the Rolling Stone issue was dated 2016, but one of the non-necessary or non-important news stories that were on this fake printout was about a movie that was going to release in the future in 2014. So there was a weird anachronism like that I had to point out to everyone there, because I'm that terrible person. And then they brought around coffee, and then there was more evidence, and then they brought around what I assume is supposed to be a dessert and not a punishment in carrot cake. And then we all had to write down who we thought was the killer. So, and someone who got the most information right won a prize. I don't know what it was though, because I didn't get it.
More carrot cake.
Probably.
The rest of
the rest of the carrot cake, because nobody fucking wanted it.
Yeah.
I'm going to play devil's advocate here and say that as long as the carrot cake has some damn good frosting, then I will definitely eat an entire carrot cake.
See, but that's
it's all about the frosting. But...
Yeah, I mean, the frosting's fine, but just at that point, go get some fucking ice cream, and like and get a real piece of. I hate carrot cake so much. It's just like, it is the dessert equivalent of someone telling you how much they're into being a vegan. And you just fuck, like, and you just, all you want to do is go eat ribs for days and then cup every fart you have and then just Buddha palm it right into their head. Just
I will say the cream cheese frosting at the very top of the cake was good, but then they had these little carrot little frosting decorations that just tasted like coloring, like food coloring was the taste of that frosting. So it wasn't all good. And also it was tiny. This thing was, I'm trying to think of something that'd be equivalent in size, but it was about the size of a York peppermint patty. So really, this was not $150 that went towards food. And what was really good is at the end of the show, they asked us to tip the actors. Like, hell no. You clearly made enough money
Here's a
off
tip,
of
don't
me by
serve
not
carrot
giving
cake.
me money, by not giving me food that we paid for. I'm not tipping you.
My biggest takeaway of just this whole evening, although I'm always up for some good food and I'm always up for a good murder mystery.
Yeah.
But this is just one step away from eating in the cinema because it's still mixing entertainment and food. And as we previously discussed, like zero tolerance.
Yeah.
So.
Also booze. A lot of booze, a lot of drunk people. And like you could pay money to become part of the show, which was basically you would be accused and then you would have to answer some questions.
That sounds like a terrible idea because then you're relying on people with like no acting experience or without any say in the script, just fucking up the whole evening.
Well, it's not so much acting because they would just ask a question and they would just say yes or no. But the last guy that they went to was either drunk and annoying or sober and really annoying because they kept asking him questions. Like literally, like the first question they asked him was peanut butter or jelly, and he would say bread. And so this went on for at least 15 minutes until he finally got around to answering. And I'm just thinking, leave the dude behind. We don't need this. We know he's not the killer. He's drunk. He can't be working.
That's a classic case of like the funniest guy in the office. Big ol' air quotes on that, and it just, the worst.
So that was my night. And then my friend decided to ruin it by afterwards taking me to a porn shop. So that's a story for another time because it's gross. Really, really gross. But let's move on to games.
Can I have a quick aside? That always reminds me. My favorite porno title ever that I haven't seen the movie, but the title is burned into my head. It may be my last words before I leave this earth. It was a gay porn called Butt Dickin'. And it was definitely DICKIN and then the apostrophe.
Well, to the point, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Chris, do you think you can follow that up with some good game talk? Can you follow up butt dickin'?
No. I haven't played any games this week, really. I've just played the final chapter of The Walking Dead, the final season, but I can't say anything about it. Shh. But my review will be up on Tuesday, so we won't have long to wait till you find out how, well, not how it ends, because I'm not going to spoil it for everyone, but how well they end it, which is, I guess, the point. I mainly watched movies this week. I didn't get around to a lot of games. I need to love games more. Yeah. I need to... Mortal Kombat's on the way. I'll be playing the beta for that at the end of the week, so I'll probably have that to talk about next time.
Were you?
Do you want to hear about a film I watched?
Sure.
Was it called Butt Dickin'?
Butt Dicking, 1985. No, it's not. I can't follow that up. You might as well just move on to somebody else.
Judging by the haircuts and the lack of condoms, 85 sounds about right.
No, that means they're all dead now. Occam,
super dead. Yeah.
You've been on the Devil May Cry kick.
A bit, yeah. I have an addendum to that. I'm mad at Devil May Cry right now, so I'm pouting and taking a break. So I like to grind red orbs. All the Devil May Cry games, I would find myself reaching a point where I'm like, I'm going to grind orbs to unlock abilities and stuff. Yeah. So I've found the spot where you can do that, and there's a weapon that allows you to do that. But it's a double-edged sword because when you have this certain weapon equipped, if you get hit while you're using it, you lose orbs. And the higher you rank up this weapon, the more orbs you can lose. And where I am, I'll make 25,000 red orbs in 3 minutes or whatever. And then I get hit and I've lost 50. And I'm really angry. And so reading online, everyone said, set the game to human because I'm playing on Devil Hunter mode. Mm-hmm. Then I found out you can't do that. You have to essentially beat the levels going back up to, it's level 13 or mission 13. You have to beat it up to mission 13 to play on human, starting mission 1. And I don't want to do that. So I'm pouting and I'm taking a break. I will get back to it probably soon, but it's just for right now. I had a moment a couple nights ago. I was flipped off the TV And I said, no. And I just turned it off and watched JoJo's Bizarre Adventure for a while. So instead, I've played a few minutes of No Man's Sky, which is just gorgeous and serene. And I still fucking hate having to like get fuel and blah. I don't care. I never want to do that. It's so boring to me. But it is so stupidly pretty and just it's great. It's a game I wish that when I had my drug summer in college I could have played. It would have been very pleasant. And then I started playing Warhammer 40K Inquisitor, the Diablo clone for Warhammer 40K. If in case the listeners don't know, I'm a huge Warhammer 40K fan. I don't play it, but I do love the world and the lore and all that stuff, and that's fun. So yeah, I'm just kind of pouting, and then Sekiro comes in from GameFly probably tomorrow or Tuesday. So I'll jump back and forth between that and beating Devil May Cry.
Are you going to try and platinum Devil May Cry or just beat it?
Fuck no. Oh, God. No, I'm not even remotely.
You might as well just buy the game.
Yeah, it's a younger man's game for that kind of stuff. And I frankly, I never cared about the trophies for that kind of thing, that sort of stuff. I'm mostly just having fun with it. I got the 2 motorcycle, like chainsaw blade weapon, and that's just so stupidly fun to me. So I'm a simple creature when it comes to games like that.
Nice. Charlotte, you've been on This War of Mine.
Yep. The recording for the Kane and Rinse episode on This War of Mine is next week. So I've been cramming in as many sessions of This War of Mine as I can. I'm taking a little bit of a break from it just for today because I've been getting quite burnt out on it. Because it's very dark and there's no escaping how dark it is. And without going into too much detail, because that's for next week, it sort of plays very much like, in a way, like a version of The Sims with a lot of the social elements cut out, and everything is so much harder to maintain. So it's like you just constantly feel like you can't keep up with all of the different requirements that you have to replenish, but that is the entire point of the game. So even though it's kind of soul-sucking and really hard to play, that's kind of the message behind it, so you can't really criticize it for that in a way. So at the moment I'm trying to get a couple more bands of people to survive, but so far I've not managed to get any groups to survive except for the one custom group that I made. And in that group, the original person either left the camp or died. So it seems like every time I get very far with a run through of This War of Mine, all my original team are dead or are gone. So I'm not doing super well, but I'm going to keep going, and then I'll have absolutely loads more to say when we record the episode on Saturday next week.
Did any of you ever play Little King's Story?
Nope.
No. Okay.
For like a second. I wanted to play it more. It was fun.
So one of the things that game has is permadeath for some of the villagers that you could take with you. And you're talking about all the people dying. So like in this game, when someone dies, like it's not just they're dead and gone. There's a whole funeral procession for them, and everyone's dressed in black and they're crying, and it was traumatizing to me as like a 27-year-old playing this. I'm like, oh my god,
that's amazing! Wow.
Have you ever played Valkyria? Well, I presume you've played one of the Valkyria Chronicles games, and when the sad music plays when one of your team members dies, that's just awful.
I've not played any of them yet, but I've watched a few Let's Plays, and yeah, as soon as that music starts, just bites you. I mean, I didn't play Fire Emblem for the longest time until they took out the permadeath as the default for it. So now I love the series.
I get that.
For my part, I mean, I'm kind of with Chris in that I haven't had a lot of time for games this week. I've just been mostly playing on the train to and from work. And this week I started Wolfenstein 2, the new Colossus, because I don't know what happened recently, but I just had a sudden urge to kill Nazis. And then I've also been playing Chocobo's Mystery Dungeon Everybody. This is the remake of the Wii game, I think from 2009. And I remember that one vividly, not just playing it, but before, because IGN, back when I still could stand IGN, had just some screenshots of the village that you go to. I think it's called Lost Time. And it was just such a quaint little village that I immediately was just smitten with the game. Like literally that's all it took to get me smitten with it. But But then I got it, and it became the first roguelike or rogue or mystery dungeon game to get me into that genre, and it's still my favorite today. And so I was going through this one, and aside from the load times that I don't remember if they were that long in the original, I don't think some of the other aspects of it are holding up as well. The graphics are dated, but that's fine. But it's more the voice acting. Like when I first heard it way back when, it was kind of like, oh, this is kind of chipper and earnest, and like I don't know, an episode of Babar on HBO or something. But now it kind of gets on my nerves. It's a little grating with how sweet and sentimental everyone is in it. So I got 30 so more hours. It'll be the perfect game to play on the plane to visit my family, and then also when I want to ignore my family. But
I'm so glad someone else remembers Babar on HBO. I was like, I guess my dad had a good year 100,000 years ago, and we had HBO for a minute, and I remember that and the Return to Oz animated series.
Yes.
Yeah.
We got HBO for free due to a cable mistake. Like they didn't know they were giving it to us for free. So we had HBO free for about a year and a half until they started handing out cable boxes, and then that went away.
Good memories.
Yeah, exactly.
You are listening to Podtoid.
All right, that is it for games, but we do have some headlines to cover. It is time for the news. All right, this was a pretty big week for gaming with GDC happening and all. Obviously, the biggest announcement from this past week was a reveal of Google Stadia, and I'm going to try really hard not to call it Stradia like I have been all week for no goddamn reason. However, the biggest announcement that everyone actually liked was that Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 is coming out, and that looks pretty dope. I have no idea what it's about. Occams does. He's probably way more excited about it than I am, but still, it looks dope.
Try, do whatever the hell you want to do, but you may be interested in watching a playthrough of the first one with the mods and stuff added in, kind of quality of life updates. It was a really interesting game, and I fully biased and spent a lot of time with the vampire world. That's another thing. I don't play anymore, but I know the lore very well and still have most of my books and original character sheets. But it was an interesting experience that really got overshadowed by, I think, like Half-Life 2, just other shit like that.
Yeah, I mean, what they were showing looked pretty goddamn awesome, so I'm definitely keeping my eye on it. And I may just watch a Let's Play. Who knows? I'm starting to do that more and more.
Yeah, me too.
As for the Stadia, a lot of rumors were confirmed. It's not a console, but rather a service that offers streaming games on any device. I believe that'll run Google Chrome. You can tell from the presentation and little promo video that it put together that Google seems to be really aiming for, kind of a one console future, even though it's not a console. And it's kind of hard to argue against the idea of being able to play your games anywhere. I mean, that's the whole appeal of the Nintendo Switch. All that said, despite having the biggest press conference at GDC, the impression I'm getting from a lot of people who were at the show is that they're still not entirely sold on the idea. This isn't exactly, jaw-dropping revelation to make, but Google is, it's shooting for the moon, but there are real-world factors that might curtail Stadia's trajectory. Like everyone and their mother has commented on data caps, lag, latency issue, reliable internet, and all these other factors that are really outside of Google's control. At GDC, the company showed off Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which is the same game it did for the Stadia beta that they did a few months ago, as well as Doom Eternal. From what I heard, Odyssey ran pretty fine, though there were some latency videos out there. However, Doom Eternal was noticeably worse with latency and fragmentation of the picture. I hear that Google was actually simulating different latency times at its different Stadia setups, which is quite odd. I don't know if any of you guys saw that. In addition to Stadia, Google also revealed its official controller for it. The Stadia controller looks kind of, I think it looks kind of like a toy, and it has a Konami code on the back for some artificial gamer cred. We talked about this last week with our predictions, but now that we know what Google Stadia is, what do you guys think about it?
I mean, I guess I have to reiterate mostly what Dan said last week, in that these issues like latency and so on and so forth, it just points out that it makes it clear that Stadia is not for everybody, but it can be for some people, if you know what I mean. So it's never going to be a viable option for people who speedrun, for example, because things like latency are a big fucking deal.
Yeah.
With speedrunning and also with anything that's competitive or requires, for example, competitive fighting games are never going to work with a system that has latency issues. But I mean, there are plenty of games and plenty of applications of such games where slight technical problems might not be a deal breaker. So I guess, I guess as I get older, I just think that having more options is with gaming and how you play games is always a good idea. And saying, oh, but I have internet data caps, so I can't make use of this properly. I mean, it's not going to be really a good console option for those sorts of applications, but that doesn't mean that it won't be good for some people. So I guess, it has limitations, but it'll suit some people, I guess. But the idea that it's going to replace all other consoles is just not realistic.
Right. And I find it weird because it really seems like it's creating almost a caste system with where you own it. Because, you know, if I buy a PlayStation 4 and I buy God of War, and if I buy that in Silicon Valley or I buy that in bumfuck Missouri, I still have the same game. It plays the same no matter what. It's still God of War. It's still on the console. It's not going to be the same with Stadia. A game that I play in Silicon Valley, where the place that has arguably the best internet speeds in the country, is obviously going to play better, more smoother, more reliably than if I were to play it in bumfuck Missouri. So it's like you said, it's definitely not for everyone. And as has been brought up, we almost don't really have the infrastructure, at least in America, to support it nationwide, to support it at the scale that the console industry can reach.
Yeah, it definitely won't work in Germany. Germany has some of the worst internet speeds from what I've read in Europe. So, but this is something that me personally, even for Germany, I have pretty poor internet at home. For example, with my PlayStation 4, I just know that I will never be able to get Tekken 7 in the sales, and I'll never be able to get Red Dead Redemption 2 in the sales because it would take me an entire month of leaving my PS4 on day in, day out to get it to download properly.
Jeez, that is slow internet.
That is a bit of an exaggeration, but it is my maximum download speed is something like 8 megaflops. So it's not very good at all. I've had to leave my consoles on overnight to download things before. So yeah, I think at the end of the day, my thoughts is people who have bad internet and that sort of roadblock will have experienced it with other things already. Like they'll not be able to stream on Twitch properly, so on and so forth. So it's just an extension of that. I don't feel like the Google Stadia is any novel expression of any sort of caste system, as you said before. I think it's just an extension, and mainly places like Germany, for example, where you would expect them to have better internet, and parts of the US really should get better internet.
Yeah, they really should. They're not going to, but they should.
I kind of feel like a country bumpkin, kind of going into the big city and looking at all the skyscrapers. A lot of this technology is kind of beyond me. I'm a simple creature. I have my PlayStation 4, and I enjoy my games. And the idea of this like cloud-based gaming and streaming and all is fun. It's kind of science fiction to me a little bit. Like when I was watching the presentation, like I was like, oh, this is awesome. And I was like, it's also kind of bullshit. Like they're playing in ideal conditions and probably had shit set up beforehand and whatever. I kind of on those things think, man, I'll be really happy the day they get that right. Yeah. It's the same thing I said with the VR. I even remember playing the fucking Virtua Boy way back when at Blockbuster and going, oh, this is pretty neat. I'm like, this is never going to work, but it's kind of cool, and like, that's a fun thing for one day. The biggest takeaway from me was that thing where you could like load in textures from other from like paintings and different stuff into any game or any, at least the way it sounded. And they had like Picasso, Van Gogh. I always confuse Van Gogh and Picasso. Don't know why. Van Gogh's Starry Night into some game to make a texture map. And I'm like, that's really cool. So I started going into my head of all this like art and stuff that I knew about that I would like, this would be fun. That'd be fun. That was kind of the biggest thing for me. But that's, again, kind of country mouse in the big city the thoughts on it. It just that maybe one day, but certainly not right now.
I don't know. Like I can be a real mark for technology sometimes, even if it's not technology that I think particularly directly affects what I want out of gaming. I couldn't really care too much about how gaming adapts in terms of the delivery system, but I'm still impressed by people coming up with new ideas and the way to do it. Like, I know a lot of people have ragged on Stadia immediately at this idea of it takes all control away, all ownership control away from the people. Like you'd own the games, but you wouldn't own the games, and it's all about licenses. And when the servers close down or when they just decide to take these games off you, although I think that's very right and very true and very noble, and I wouldn't argue that, it's not something that bothers me personally too much. I'm not saying that means it doesn't matter. It just means that I'm less. I think less about that, and just I'm more impressed with the idea of like you have the controller and then you just like stick it into these screens, and whatever screen you've got this game running, whether it's on your phone or on your tablet or on your PC or whatever. I think that's really like fantastic, but it all comes down to what you've been saying, and Charlotte touched upon it as well, obviously. It's just that whole thing of this is all great if it works. If it doesn't work, it doesn't count for shit. Now, you could say that about anything. You could say, well, every idea is great unless it doesn't work. And that's true, but this seems to be something that it's not even a question of the product's release on day one, and if it works on day one, then it'll work forever. It's a question of like, oh, I couldn't play it today because it was raining, or I couldn't play it today because that my internet service provider was having like a bad day and they'd had to slow down the speeds or whatever. And I think for a lot of people, more so than the failure of ownership of the games you buy, I think the problem is this idea of whenever you're playing anything that's consistently online and that the servers are held somewhere else and based on where you're located, who your ISP is, but even things like whether your house is in a valley or whether your house is like high up on a hill or whatever, will just decide whether something works. It might work perfectly Monday and then not work on Tuesday, but Tuesday might have been the day you needed to play or wanted to play the game. So I guess this is a real simplified way of putting it, but like it's a great idea if it works, and if it doesn't work, all of the grandeur of the technology doesn't matter. But then is it almost like a case of, well, we don't care if it doesn't work for everyone, as long as it works for the people who can like afford it and enjoy it. Everyone else can go fuck themselves. I'm not necessarily saying that's, but yeah, that's kind of, it's almost, a bit like the Microsoft's, if you haven't got a good internet, then don't buy an Xbox One, just stick with your 360. And it was kind of like, if your internet's bad, fuck off, because we've got we've got better tech. That was kind of the line Microsoft had with the Xbox One. And I wonder sometimes whether Stadia is going to be like that. So if you put your hand up and go, well, I'm in this country and our internet's terrible, they're going to be like, yeah, but your country's not North America, so go fuck yourself.
I did find it weird that, they made the big deal of having Jade Raymond, bringing her on as the lead of the Stadia Google development team to actually make games. And unless I completely missed it, there was no actual game announced. And really the only games they showed off were stuff that you're going to be able to buy on another console. So if it's launching this year and it's not launching with an exclusive, with something you can only get on Stadia, I think that's just only going to hurt it more. Because if the top titles you're getting on it are also available other places, unless Google starts pulling Epic Store and just getting a bunch of timed exclusives.
Well, see, the whole presentation to me felt like this is a curiosity, and this is not a competitor. It was like, oh, that's fun, but it doesn't until it proves its viability. It was like, though, this is something you'd play at like those virtual reality shops they had. Yeah, I remember it's like that where, oh, this is cool, but like you'd have to have like stupid money to actually afford anything to like have it at home. That's what it felt like to me.
Well, the interesting point that you kind of touched upon there about it being a novelty kind of ties back to, and I can't remember whether we talked about this last. No, we didn't, but it ties back to, they had a stand outside GDC, I believe Google did, which had these cabinets. And in the cabinets was like a Nintendo Power Glove and a Dreamcast and a copy of E.T. on the Atari 2600, along with a message that said something like, if you dream it, you can build it. And some people almost interpreted that, rightfully or not, as almost Google saying, what we're creating might not set the world on fire, but you'll remember that it was the innovative product that's like started the future of gaming, which is, that might be a reach, but that's how some people interpreted that display they had of those products.
Where does ET fit in that mold?
I don't know. I didn't put the cabinets together, but I do.
No, that's fair. That's fair.
No, I do. I know what you mean, because like the Power Glove genuinely kind of had purpose. It just wasn't very adaptive. And the Dreamcast was a great console. It didn't have the games and the people didn't get behind it. But ET was just shit. And it like pretty much helped crash the entire industry. So that's kind of it doesn't fit into, that doesn't really fit into the message that people have interpreted. You know, Google didn't say that's what they meant by that. I was going to say, I sound like I'm being a bit down on Stadia. I think on paper, it's a really good futuristic idea. Yeah. The idea of like, as long as you've got the controller and you just fire it up, and then you've got all your games and you're running them on whatever screen you want. All of that, I think, is a good idea. And as I've said, I'm not too bothered about the idea of the lack of ownership. It doesn't frustrate me personally that much, but which is another topic, which I'm not going to go into. But but it all comes down to if it works. And if it doesn't work, then it doesn't matter. And if it works for the majority, but some people have to go without, well, they've got other consoles and stuff. But the fact that it might not work for some already sets it up as like a product that's shakier compared to just going and buying a box and sticking it under your telly.
Yeah, exactly. Because like the when I say that the Stadia isn't anything new in terms of being unable to use it fully if you have a bad internet connection. At least with a PS4, you can just say, okay, I'll not do any of the online play. I'll just pick single player games where it doesn't matter that my internet connection is bad. Stadia's entire premise is that your internet connection has to be stable enough to get it to work properly. So I guess it is, I'm not super mad at that. It's a limitation that means it's always going to be like a secondary form of playing games rather than a real contender on the market, I think.
Yeah. And if anything, if this somehow pushes for better quality internet service around the world, then, you know, even if it fails, it will have been worth it.
Well, the thing that like we haven't pointed out yet is if you said to somebody, someone's going to run an online video game service and it has to be the most powerful online video game service in the whole world, like what company should do it? The only people who kind of have the money and the balls to give it a go are Google. If it was like Electronic Arts saying, we're going to do this, you'd be like, oh, you might be out of your depth here. But it is like the single biggest internet giant on the planet. Do you know what I mean?
Well, funny you mention that because EA is looking to do something like this. You know, there's a bunch of different people looking at streaming services, and the rumor.
Yeah, but I kind of meant on the scale of. I hear what you're saying, but I kind of mean on the scale of this is our solitary platform for delivering video games to you.
Right, and you know who I think, if this does work, who will absolutely fall in the footsteps is Ubisoft. Because remember, like a decade ago, Yves Saint Laurent, no, that's not their name. Yves Goulemont, not the fashion designer. Was talking about how they wished that there was new consoles released every 2 years versus every 5 to 6 years because they wanted access to more power more quickly. So I think if there's anyone who's going to get on board, I mean, that's why Assassin's Creed was right there day one for the beta test. It's going to be Ubisoft because that's the one company I always connect to wanting more power all the time, all the goddamn time. Got to move on. Our second story of the week is, I don't know if you guys even remember because I completely forgot when I was putting this together. We had a Nintendoinnies presentation that happened on Wednesday. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That was fun.
Yeah. Remember way back when? We keep hearing that indie games continue to sell really well on the Switch. Actually, it was revealed this week that Toe Jam and Earl Back in the Groove has reportedly sold 40% of all of its sales have come from the Switch so far.
Wow,
so
that's great.
Yeah, so and I think they're a third of their way to making the money that they need to turn a profit. So, not bad for 2 weeks. So there was a show and there was a bunch of new indies coming out this year and later to the Switch. Some of the titles real quick was Nuclear Throne, The Red Lantern, which is probably my favorite of the show. Cuphead is jumping from Xbox One and PC to Switch next month. We also have Rad coming from Double Fine Studios. But the big wow was at the end of the show with Cadence of Hyrule. This is the crossover of Crypt of the Necrodancer and The Legend of Zelda. It uses the same gameplay formula as Crypt of the Necrodancer, but includes Link and Zelda as playable characters, as well as reworked versions of SNES-era Zelda enemies. Apparently, the developers approached Nintendo and about making DLC for the game, and Nintendo was like, nah, make a whole new game, bro. I'm sure they said bro, too.
Did they really accent that O as much as well?
Yeah, dog. Go make that game instead, bro. I'm Doug Bowser, bitch. So that's pretty cool, and it eventually ended up with a lot of just a bounty of articles about which indies you want to see take over IPs from Nintendo. I don't want to talk about that. I just want to know if you guys had any games from the show that you really liked, that you were really interested in.
I gotta say, I don't have a Switch, but I watch these Nintendo Directs because they make me so happy, and it's almost like a adjacent happiness to it, because I know people like on Destructoid are watching that are just like freaking out and having such a good time. And I tell you, I saw that when I first saw the Cadence of Blubbity Blue, whatever. My first thought was, oh, this is they're re-releasing or remaking Link to the Past, because it looks exactly like it. And I was very happy. And then when I realized what it was, I thought, and I commented as much, that Nintendo is really, really good at giving you experiences you didn't know you wanted, and then you can't live without. And
right.
It was such a cool idea. It was such a beautiful game. There's so much love in the games they make and what they choose to kind of utilize their licenses for. It made me very happy. So yeah, it was a good time.
And it's crazy because this is their second game. It's not like the people who made Crypt and Necrodancer have been at it for decades. It's not like it's the Yacht Club or anything, Yacht Club games. This is their second game, and they're already getting their hands on one of the most treasured IPs in entertainment. So, Chris, you have any highlights from the show you want to bring up?
Not hugely. I'm a big fan of Cuphead. I think more people should play that game. So I'm always happy to see that come to new platforms. And yeah, I love Necrodancer. I think Necrodancer is like a really great title. I play it. It's a game I sometimes play like before I go to bed, as almost like a wind down game. Really odd choice of wind down game, considering it's full of flashing lights and really intense movement. But I was genuinely shocked when they showed it. But I was also really happy for like the Necrodancer team that they'd got it, and like hopefully being associated with Necrodancer, like some of that quality will rub off on the Zelda franchise.
I don't see it happening, but maybe.
Maybe.
Charlotte, what about you?
Well, I didn't have much of a chance to look at it, but I'm just been looking through what was announced, and Neocab looks cool. Reminds me a lot of Valhalla, which is one of my favorite games of the past couple of years. Just like, sort of quasi, not post-apocalyptic, but a world that's sort of different and a lot to do with how do I describe it? Like Valhalla's a game that's all about
cyberpunk.
Cyberpunk. Yeah, that's the word. It looks very similar, and it's like managing income and stuff like that. It reminds me very much of Valhalla, and I really love that game. So that looks really cool. But yeah, I'm sort of like overwhelmed with all these indie games that are on the Switch now, and I just need to go and get a Switch.
Yeah. And these are just the indie games that they want to talk about. This doesn't even include the 18 other indie games that come to the Switch every goddamn week that no one's going to bring up, but apparently still do pretty decent sales. So
is the Red Lantern that's the dog sledding?
Yes,
survival game. You're up for that, are you?
Absolutely. I know it has crafting in it, and I know it's kind of a survival game, but I love the idea that a game is set in the Iditarod. There aren't nearly enough, and there aren't nearly enough pieces of entertainment that use that as a backdrop, and so I am just hands down going to get that whenever it's released.
Well, CJ, this is a new facet of you that I'm finding very interesting.
Really?
I didn't know you were an Iditarod head.
Yeah, absolutely. Was it Balto? Were those the Iditarod cartoon movies from the 90s?
Yeah,
oh, God, I watched all three of those. I love me some Balto. I don't know what it is about it, but it's always been something that's fascinated me. And it's not even the fact that you could die doing it. It's just, I don't know. It's just man or woman with team of dogs. And it's always just, I don't know, so badass to me. It's something adventurous CJ would do, but not normal CJ.
That's fair. I thought the trailer was interesting. I thought it was kind of weird. Like, what was the premise of she was a corporate or something, and then and I always wanted to lead a pack of wolves. Or it sounded like an American Psycho quote to me. But the premise is certainly unique. I didn't give it much of a thought, but I'll have to go back and take a gander.
They did something interesting because in the trailer you basically see all the dogs get annihilated. I think in the game you have the dogs with you, don't you? I don't think it's the dogs get annihilated and you're just walking around on your own, because I'm sure I heard people talking about how you had to feed the dogs and keep them rested and stuff like that. So
I think the dogs getting annihilated is one scenario that can happen if you don't do a good job.
Yeah. It's not that happens in the intro and then the rest of the game is just you on your own walking around. It's
then it becomes a less interesting game to me.
Okay. I was just double checking.
Yeah, if that's the case, then it's just every other fucking survival sim out there.
Exactly. Yeah.
Our third story, go through this really quickly. Konami is turning 50 or has turned 50. I don't know. I don't focus on his birthday. And for it is releasing 3 collections of some of its most popular games. The first collection is an arcade classic grouping, and it includes Haunted Castle, Typhoon, Gradius 2, Salamander, Thundercross, Scramble, and Twin B. That collection is coming on April 18th. The second collection was all Contra, and it has Contra, Super C, and Contra 3, The Alien Wars. And the final collection that we know of, at least, is Castlevania, that so far will include Castlevania 2, Belmont's Revenge, that's the Game Boy one, Castlevania 3, Dracula's Curse, and Super Castlevania 4. Both Contra and Castlevania have 4 unrevealed titles, and it'll be interesting to see what else is included, given that all the collections are retailing for $20 each. I don't think we're going to see any PlayStation 2 or PlayStation 3 Castlevania games on there. More than likely, it's got to be something like Rondo of Blood and maybe some of the Game Boy Advance titles, or maybe the Castlevania Rebirth from WiiWare. Now that you can't buy that anymore, Castlevania is the collection I'm easily most looking forward to. Occams, what about you?
In terms of the Castlevania collection, I would love to see the Castlevania Fighting game on there.
Judgment?
Just because I'll be that asshole. And
one of the spots is taken up by one of the worst games.
Absolutely. Castlevania is a weird thing for me. I never. They weirded me out as a kid. They depressed me because it was just it was so bleak, which is weird because I'm me and I seem like I would love that stuff. But I never played them very much beyond a couple cursory playthroughs. And God, I've watched friends play Symphony of the Night so many times. But I have a fondness for the series. Well, kind of hate playing them. But I may give this one a shot. I'm excited about Castlevania. In the arcade collection, were there more games to be revealed? Because I could have sworn Life Force was one of those games.
So each of the games had 2 different names next to it. So I think there was one that was an original name and then one that was a re-release name. So I kind of went with the most well-known game. But no, those were all the games that they announced.
Oh, okay.
Life Force may be one of the, maybe Typhoon or one of the Gradius titles. So
Fair enough. I spent a lot of time as a kid playing Life Force, so that brought back some good memories. I think I love these collections. I think it's a great way to kind of replay them in a more convenient modern setting. I think it's a great chance for people who never played these games to get a good experience with them all in one place. I think it's a great way to like cross generations for these games. So we're pushing 40, a couple of us, and we can have like our nephews, nieces, kids, younger brothers, younger sisters, whatever it is, play these. So I'm excited. I love these gaming collections. I know there are people who always say, especially with Castlevania, this version or this version. I don't really get lost in the weeds with that. I kind of think that's missing the forest for the trees a bit. But it's they're fun to me, and I'm always happy when they come out.
I think the collections look good, and they're going to sell well, especially considering the games that are on them. That arcade collection has got some really good games on it, like Salamander and stuff like that. But I'm not going to deny I'm really disappointed in what I thought it was going to be. And this isn't me just being old gamer guy, but like I really thought when they were like arcade collection, I was like, fucking here we go. Sunset Riders, Mystic Warriors, Vendetta, Violent Storm. Maybe not the licensed games. I wasn't expecting Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, or that really overrated Simpsons Brawler that everyone says is good and is not. But
Chris, what the fuck did I just hear you say?
Why is Smithers breaking into a jewelry store to steal a diamond?
Why not Smithers?
It's a big diamond. And he needs
diamond.
it to accessorize his Malibu Stacy collection. Duh.
Exactly.
I think you'll find that episode hadn't screened by the point that game came out, CJ. So.
I think Smithers is still black in the
He is, yeah.
in the game, yeah.
The game's really long, like it's about 2 stages too long, and it's chock full of characters who aren't in the show, like absolutely chock full of them.
What, the King Kong guy? Come on, everyone remembers classic King Kong guy.
the gangsters, where one of them's his suit's too big. Remember that dude?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That game, especially kind of looking back, hindsight is so 2020. But that game was such a goddamn Mad Libs of like Simpsons elements that made no sense.
It was more. Is it called Life in Hell?
Yes.
No, that's the cartoon.
It's
that's
more
the
a
comic.
Life in Hell game than it is a Simpsons game.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds like I'm being really like militant, but when you've got like Ninja Turtles and X-Men, it's like there's the X-Men, there's those X-Men bad guys, there's those stages, there's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, there's April and Shredder and Bebop and Rocksteady. And then they just make a Simpsons game because Simpsons is massive, and it's like Marge is hitting people with a vacuum cleaner.
Yeah.
And there's a level that's, I remember at the end you fight Mr. Burns and he's in a mech suit. And
Yes. Well, I mean, what else would he be in?
Doesn't Lisa like whip people with a jumping rope? I can't remember the last time I saw her with a skipping rope in the
Like,
cartoon.
when the fuck did Lisa exercise ever? It should have been a saxophone.
Yeah, it should have been a saxophone. But that's basically my problem with the Simpsons arcade game. And this was like the story that CJ was like, we're going to rush through this one. My problem with the Simpsons Brawler that everyone loves is it's nostalgic, but it really doesn't capture what The Simpsons is. It's just the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fighting game reskinned with some Simpsons characters and then a load of made-up shit.
And counterpoint to that is you're right, but it doesn't matter because for a brief fleeting second, we can all be 13 again in Celebration Station with pizza grease on our fingers, mashing the A button for our dear life.
Except, Occam's, going back to my original point, we can't because none of these games are on this collection, which is kind of my original point. Is that when I was the first person to write the story on the site about this Konami arcade collection, and I was like, how can it not be? Even if it wasn't the licensed games, how can it not be? In 1 year, Konami put out like TMNT and The Simpsons and Vendetta, and these all came out like the same year. And like, how can none of that year's games be on the collection? So the games that are on that collection are great, but what a missed opportunity.
I almost wonder if they're ramping up for just had to take time to get the license. I mean, I don't know how the sausage is made with the stuff, but it's never as simple as we think it is. And I would hope in the future, especially Sunset Riders, because that fucking game ruled. I would love to see a proper, like proper air quotes, but like just a more beefier arcade collection.
Yeah, because between like 89 and 92, they knocked it out the fucking park in the arcades.
Can I say, you know how I know I've matured as a person? Is I remember when I was a kid playing the X-Men arcade game, and I would like scramble for Wolverine, scramble for Colossus, be okay with Nightcrawler, even though his super was the best one of all the characters. And no one wanted to play Dazzler. Just no one did with her little brown half jacket and leggings. And now I always play Dazzler.
Oh.
And she throws a hologram. She throws like a multicolored ball, doesn't
she? Yeah.
It rainbows the screen.
Yeah, it's like a little like light bomb.
Yeah. There you go. There's a game you can't play on the Konami Arcade Collection.
The one thing that I just want to add to the whole Simpsons arcade game debate was to disagree with Chris and say that actually it was a perfect representation of a show that was supposed to end after 4 seasons. Not the show that has run for 39 years or however fucking long it's been on the air. Like the show, when they still planned to have the last episode have Marge let down her hair to show the bunny ears to connect it to Life is Hell. Like that is the show that arcade game was made for. It was not made for the show where Homer goes to live with Alec Baldwin and Kim Basinger or 50
Marge
Cent does
the UFC.
Yeah, exactly.
Marge posed in Playboy.
That's true. And actually, speaking of The Simpsons and Marge and Playboy and 20th Century Fox, we're going to end with just hopefully real quick, a little bit of non-video game news. After more than a year of going through the process, Disney finally purchased 20th Century Fox for I think it was north of $70 billion. So Disney now owns all the major Marvel characters with the exception of Spider-Man and the Incredible Hulk, as well as the Alien franchise, the Ice Age franchise, the Avatar franchise. It now fully owns all of the Star Wars films because if you remember, if they didn't buy 20th Century Fox, they would never own the rights to the original Star Wars movie. Independence Day, 90th Museum, and so many more. As of right now, Disney controls 7 of the top 10 grossing films of all time. And to celebrate their acquisition, they are apparently shutting down Fox 2000. This sucks. I really, really hate this because so much of cinema today is kind of those big tentpole releases. And Fox 2000 was one of those mid-tier studios in the business. And if you don't know any Fox 2000 films, let me just read off a few of their titles. Hidden Figures, Life of Pi, Bridge of Spies, Rise of the Planet of the Apes, The Devil Wears Prada, The Hate You Give, Marley and Me, Down with Love, Man on Fire, and Walk the Line. Whenever there was like a big movie coming out and like this was going to dominate the box office, and then you also have that other movie that comes out that's counter programming to get people who don't want to go see the big, superhero or whatever fucking film's coming out. It's like usually that was like a Fox 2000 film, and it's something that people generally liked. Something like Hidden Figures made over $100 million. Something like Life of Pi made like $600 million. I mean, yeah, the studio did also create the Alvin and Chipmunks movies and 27 Dresses, but you really shouldn't just judge them by that. So I just wanted to just share my 2 cents. That I think that really fucking sucks. But let's go out on a good note, I guess, and just let everyone know that the Bill and Ted movie called Bill and Ted Face the Music has begun production and is looking to release next year. Occams, you care about that more than I do. Are you excited for that?
I am. That's a fun way to phrase that. It's yeah. It was. What is it saying? Weird flex, but okay. Yeah, I am. There was a really sweet video they posted with Alex Winter and Keanu Reeves just talking about the whole thing. And there's clearly a lot of love there. I don't know if it's going to be good. I don't know if I need to see Bill and Ted in their 50s by now. Yeah. But I think there's going to be a lot of love. And I hope that the movie brings as much happiness and joy as the first 2 did, even though the second one was weirdly, weirdly dark. But still good. And for those of you who haven't seen Bill and Ted, as I imagine there's some of you, go watch them. They're just a good time. and they make you smile.
I hope that they learn from the mistakes of something like Zoolander 2 or Dumb and Dumber 2, the actual sequel, not the prequel, of just those long in development, waiting forever sequels that didn't turn out so good. Because Zoolander 2 sucked. Dumb and Dumber 2 sucked. Like I've never seen a Bill and Ted film, so I guess I have to watch them now. But I just hope that they are able to avoid the pratfalls that those other films fell into.
I'm genuinely surprised at that, given your kind of depth of pop culture history and things. I figured that'd been one of your go-to video rentals, sick days in middle school kind of thing.
He was too busy with his fucking Balto movies.
Damn, man. Fucking coming at Balto.
You are listening to Podtoid.
We are just about out of time, but before we go, I believe we have a Podtoid question of the week. Stadias Transfer ML can change the art style of a game on the fly. What work or art style would you like to apply to a game?
I will. I'll start since this is my question. There's about a million different things I can think of: impressionism, surrealism, Art Deco. But in my heart of hearts, in my fart of farts, it's Lisa Frank.
I would take the gameplay the game of Papers, Please, and replace all of the characters with those terrible George W. Bush paintings, just to see if we can't find a more irritating art style to look at. I love Papers, Please, but it's kind of a hard game to look at intentionally, and one way to definitely make that harder is to put the George W. Bush paintings as the characters. Either that or those god-awful Rosie O'Donnell ones. Oh, Lord.
It's like if Thomas Kincaid had a stroke.
So there is one really, really strange sort of art style that's stuck in my head. Well, it's boring and strange at the same time. There's this Japanese older lady called Yayoi Kusama, probably completely massacred that name. But she's this really small elderly lady with an Anna Wintour bright red wig, and all she does is installations where everything is in polka dots, absolutely everything. It's simultaneously the most boring yet bizarre thing you could possibly look at. And I think it would be pretty cool to just replace all of the textures, all of the background textures in a game, so it looks like a Yayoi Kusama installation. Every single game would look like LSD Dream Emulator, basically. So
I'm looking her up now. It's that's crazy stuff.
Yeah. It's I think she sued somebody for stealing her art style at some point. I might be mixing her up. But if she did, it's how? It's polka dots. How can you do that?
Yeah.
I didn't think I had an answer for this. And then I saw something this week that really changed my mind. So as some of you might know, I make those bead models out of perla beads. And I've tried all sorts of different things. I've done big ones, I've done small ones, I've tried 16-bit sprites and 8-bit sprites and everything. But I saw something on Twitter this week that you should go and check it out yourself. I think it was from Japan, so I can't give you a name or anything, but I'm sure you can search for it. Someone had basically made all the animations of all of Kirby's attacks. They'd made every frame of animation as a separate perla bead model, and then they'd animated it so it was Kirby walking and performing all of his attacks. But that meant they'd done all the effects, and when he changes color, they'd made different frames of him for the color changes as well. And then they animated it, and I've never seen that done before. And then I just thought, what with the Kirby's, what's his
Epic Yarn?
What's the Epic Yarn, or with Yoshi's Crafted World or whatever? What if they did? And Nintendo did a platformer that was in the style of those perla beads, and I thought that'd be a really good idea.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, absolutely.
That's cool.
If anything, I think for open world games that are boringly designed, we should be able to drop Salvador Dali melting clocks on the environment wherever we want. That'll just make it a little more interesting. Here's a boring forest. Oh, now it's a boring forest full of melting clocks. All right, so that's it. But we do have a community shout out, Occams.
Yeah, I just want to give a shout out to all the Destructoid parents out there. This was inspired two things. Wilf of the Blues recently posted that her daughter got her braces off, and then which was awesome. I remember I had braces. I remember the day I got them off, and it was a freeing experience where I would go on to not talk to girls for another 10 years, but still, it was a good time. At least I didn't get like Cheetos stuck in my teeth anymore. And Sir Churros posted he has a little one, a wee one, a baby, and he gives us updates on the little kid. And I love seeing that stuff. It makes me happy. It makes when the community shares their life outside of just video games, it really makes this here house a home. So community shout out to all the parents out there.
That is it for the show. On behalf of Chris, Charlotte, Occams, and myself, thank you for listening, and tune in next time for a new episode of Podtoid.